Hey everybody, this is Alan. I just wanted to drop a note in here before we get into things. Dave and I recorded this episode just a few days before the passing of James Earl Jones. And considering the topic today, I thought it would just, we should probably just drop a little note here on the front to say that Dave and I are both saddened to hear of his passing. He was so many things to so many people in pop culture and movies and television, and really just a national treasure. By all accounts, he was a great human being on top of it all, and we're going to miss him. One note that I did see was that about 10 years ago, he sold the rights to his voice to Disney so that they can create an AI equivalent of him to do Darth Vader going forward. So we'll see. Apparently they've been using it for a little while, and I don't know. We'll see what happens there. But again, we just wanted to say thank you to James Earl Jones for all the work that he did in movies that we love. You know, obviously the voice of Darth Vader, the voice of CNN, also the voice of Mustafa from The Lion King. But then he had great turns in Conan the Barbarian, Coming to America, Great White Hope. I'm trying to remember all of them off the top of my head. I loved him in Field of Dreams. He was great in that. And he had a good long life, had a great career, and he will be missed. So having said that, we're going to get into the episode now. Hope you enjoy. Welcome back to the Project Gen X podcast. I am one of your hosts, Alan Smith, along with...
I'm Big Dave.
And on this episode... So, in light of recent developments, and by recent I mean the last 10 years of development inside of Lucasfilms being owned by Disney, because of all the missteps that have happened with Star Wars...
Missteps? Are we sure they're missteps at this point?
We'll be generous at this point. Just say because of all the missteps that have occurred. I got the bright idea that, hey, you know what? Maybe we ought to give the prequels another look. So, for the first time since any of them were in theaters, which I think the Revenge of the Sith came out in 2005. So 19 years since I've seen any of them.
Mm-hmm.
I rewatched all three of them back to back.
Oh, yeah.
Last night.
Well, I didn't do it last night. I've done it over the last 3 days.
No. I watched them back to back.
Yeah.
To back.
No, I get it.
7 hours of... 7.5 hours.
How did you keep from going to sleep or becoming so enraged you had to stop it and go outside for a little while?
Before we get into all that, I want to go on record right now as saying this is the last time we will talk about Star Wars on this podcast. Okay?
I don't believe you.
And that doesn't mean that Star Wars will not come up from time to time, because it happens. It is a touchstone of Gen X. But this is going to be the last time we talk about Star Wars as a property for an episode. Does that make sense?
I'm actually okay with that.
Okay. Because we did, I think it was our 50th episode that we did one about the original trilogy.
Where my wife came in.
And Miss Nay came in and sat down and we talked about the movies, we talked about the game, or the toys and the games, and everything that went along with Star Wars.
The original
trilogy.
Star Wars.
And
not A New Hope. Star
Wars, yes. And
Empire Strikes Back.
Yes, and Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi.
And we did an episode about Return of the Jedi
Yep.
last year because it was the 40th anniversary.
Yep.
And I guess since this is actually the 25th anniversary of The Phantom Menace, this kind of goes along with it. But really and truly, the reason why I brought this topic to the table for Dave and I was because I have dumped on these movies for pretty much from the beginning, you know, especially The Phantom Menace, and the other two I've kind of been...
Attack of the Clones.
The other two, Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, I have wavered moderately on them over the years, never really saying either one of them were good, but never being like, these are terrible.
I will say this.
Okay.
I'm kind of okay, not completely, but kind of okay with Phantom Menace. I abhor Attack of the Clones. I'm actually pretty much okay with Revenge of the Sith.
Okay.
That's all I'll say about that right now.
Okay.
We'll get into the reasons why.
We will get into all this.
I think the middle one is the weakest and worst of the three prequels.
So you're saying the middle part of the trilogy is usually the weakest one?
No, just this one. Just this one, because everybody knows Empire.
The Two Towers was the weakest of the three.
Well, you're not wrong, man. Everybody knows Empire was the better of the three.
It's good. I think Star Wars is the best of the three, and that Empire is a close second.
Yes.
And Jedi was my first real disappointment in life.
Just a bunch of Muppets.
So it really is. It was, and I said it. You can go back and listen to that episode from last summer about Return of the Jedi. That was the first time in my life,
stupid subliminal messaging,
my 9-year-old life, where
you waved your arm in front of me with your three little
with my candy corn.
And suddenly, I'm craving the candy corn. I hate you.
My candy corn tattoo made you eat more candy corn.
Yes, exactly. You and your subliminal messaging.
Well, does my my hand of poker make you want to play cards? Is that?
I just lose at this point.
Does my Toys R Us tattoo make you want to go buy toys? I mean, what is the...
I'm always down for buying toys.
Yeah, so The Phantom Menace came out in May of 1999. Everyone was excited.
I was excited.
I was...
New Star Wars. How could he... This is going to be great. We're getting new Star Wars.
We're getting new Star Wars. And the hype train around this thing had been building for a couple of years. When Lucas announced that he was working on a new trilogy of Star Wars movies. Because, again, unless you count those two made-for-television Ewok movies... We had not had new Star Wars since 1983.
No.
So 16 years had passed with nothing. Now, we had the Timothy Zahn books. We had other extended universe books and comics and games and all kinds of stuff like that. There had been the release of the Star Wars special editions.
I don't count that.
I know, but it's like, it was, again, that was, you have to remember this though. Them releasing those movies in 1997, okay, was really a preamble to The Phantom Menace being released, because it was like for the first time, for the first time in a long time, Star Wars is in theaters, and it was. Say what you will about the special editions, and I have a lot of bad to say about them. It was still exciting to go to the theater and see Star Wars on the big screen, okay?
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Until all this extra stuff started showing up in the movie, and it was like, what is this crap?
And initially, it was all right. And then it just, after a while, you're like, no, I don't want to see those. I want to see the original ones. This is, that, and Lucas tried really hard to erase the originals with these stupid special editions.
I really think maybe they should bring a charge of molesting to Lucas for what he did to the original.
You have to watch, was it The People versus George Lucas?
Yes.
That documentary. Yeah. But yeah, when he had announced when those movies were coming back to theaters, and then he had announced that he was working on this new trilogy.
Yeah.
I mean, the buzz in the air was just, it was palpable. It was like people were talking about it. There was matter of fact, they would just released a new line of Star Wars action figures. That was the Power of the Force stuff that was, that had just been released in '97. And it was just one of those things where it was like Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars, and it's like, we're about to get more Star Wars. Yeah, exactly. And as it ran up, the ramp up to the Phantom Menace, I will always maintain, I still think is one of the best movie posters that got me just really excited about a movie was that Phantom Menace teaser poster that was put out that shows Jake Lloyd as young Anakin Skywalker standing there, and the shadow is Darth Vader behind him.
I was like,
that's like that just is like, whoa, And then when they finally released the trailer, it was, whoa, this looks good. You can go back and watch that Phantom Menace trailer. The movie that was promised in that trailer and the movie we actually got are two completely different things.
Yep, it was a bait and switch. Total bait and switch.
So I remember tickets were sold out everywhere.
Yeah.
They were sold out for the opening weekend of the Phantom Menace. What are you looking at?
Sorry, you've got a pretty big praying mantis on the window up there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, that trailer was a total bait and switch.
Yeah, it was. It overpromised at the very least. Okay, that was at the very least it overpromised. Now, and of course they did the whole Force Fridays thing where they released a bunch of that's really what Force Friday started, was with the Phantom Menace, where it was like, hey, we're going to release a bunch of new toys and shirt, clothing, and just a bunch of new items, that it was everywhere. You couldn't go anywhere without people talking about the Phantom Menace. It was everywhere for about a month.
Yep.
And then the backlash started. Now, I was going to say, so I actually got to see it opening night.
Yeah, I think we did too.
But
we went to the late showing.
No, I got to see it on like the 7:00 show.
No, our group went to the late showing, and we went to the theater early to get in line to make sure we were going to get good seats. And we're all standing here at the end of the ramp, waiting for the movie to get over, and then the movie lets out. And the people that start coming out of the movie theater are looking at us like, oh, I am so sorry. We're like, what? And they all look so deflated and defeated. Like, we're like, what? Tell us. And they're like, no, just go watch it. And we got in there, and the music starts. We get the 20th Century Fox.
The fanfare.
And then the screen goes dark. And then the Star Wars theme plays, and Star Wars comes up, and we get the reel with, telling us the backstory
about the trade disputes.
And the trade disputes, and we're really into it, and this is a great movie, and then they land on the planet, and then Jar Jar Binks happens.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen until like 20 minutes into the movie with Jar Jar. Do you remember the music video for Duel of the Fates?
No.
Yes. They released a music video for Duel. I say quote unquote music video. It was the Duel of the Fates track.
Yeah.
The John Williams, the orchestration and everything. And there were some shots from the movie, and there was a bunch of like behind the scenes stuff that was in there. Like there was Ray Park and
who did he was one of the better parts of that movie.
But it was him and who plays everybody? Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor rehearsing. It was a lot. It was a lot of behind the scenes stuff of them like going through with their with the choreography and kind of stuff. And of course, he's using he's got like a bow staff and stuff, like kind of. And it's like it was really cool watching that kind of stuff. And of course, they were showing they were giving shots inside of the special effects and this and that and all that stuff. So it was like it was really, the excitement was just building and building and building and building for this thing. And I had a feeling that because the thing is theaters were sold out everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so I was just like, I guess I'm going to have to wait to see it in the middle of the week or something, And Andy, our friend Andy, called me the night that it opened, that Friday night, and said, hey, our buddy Jeff, he worked at the old Indian Lake Theater. It's like, hey, he can get us in. There's a couple of seats in the 7 o'clock. Are you going to be able to? Yes. So we went there. He held a couple of tickets for us, and we went and wound up sitting there. Place was packed. I mean, packed. And I'll be honest, I really enjoyed it that night. It was the days afterwards that, wait a second, what was that? What? And then you start talking to other people who had seen the movie, and you start comparing notes. And I caught this. Well, I caught this. Well, what was wrong? Why was this? What was that? I don't. And that's really and truly what it was. Some people did initially when they sat down and watched it in that first showing that they saw, were like, wait, what's going on? Well, maybe I need to go see it again. And then they went back and saw it again. And then when they saw it the second time, it was like, oh, this movie is, there's all kinds of problems. So it was like...
The first time I saw it, I really enjoyed it.
Right.
Up until the point that Jar Jar Binks showed up, and every time he was on screen, it was like nails on a chalkboard. I'm like, if we could just completely cut him out of this movie, this would be an okay movie.
Rewatching it last night,
or give us a Gungan that actually has a brain in his head. I think
rewatching
Village Idiot.
Yeah, rewatching The Phantom Menace last night. He's not in it as much as I remember him being in it. Again, I had not seen it in 25 years, and I was glad for that. Now, all of the problems with him just stood out even more now than they did back then. And as well as some other stuff. I mean, there's just some really cheap jokes, and like he steps in a big pile of poop, and then there's there's a fart joke, and there's there's all kinds of stuff.
Overuse of the "I've got a bad feeling about."
Yeah. All right, let me tell you something.
Throughout all three trilogies,
I noticed this rewatching these because, like I said, I watched them back to back to back. I mean, literally, it was one of them ended, I started the next one.
Yeah,
that one ended, I started the next one. Literally got finished at like 3 o'clock this morning watching these things.
Okay.
You can go back even to the original trilogy and see that dialogue is not Lucas's strong point.
No, that's the reason he had other people write it after the first movie.
Not on these, though. That's the thing.
No.
And so there are in all three movies, where the dialogue, of course, my mind is blanking on the actual what it was that was said, where somebody says something, and then the person they're talking to says the exact same thing back to them.
There was a lot of that.
I was like, what is this? This is, I mean, freshmen in high school could write better than this. I mean, better dialogue than this. I mean, this is just, it was terrible.
And if you go to some of the fan fiction, you've seen where they
I know. And
Lucas can't write dialogue with a crap.
No.
And it absolutely shows up in the second one. Since we're going to go ahead and go talk about dialogue, the second one is completely destroyed by the dialogue. Mm-hmm. I used to blame Hayden Christensen for the way...
When you're working with a crap script, there's not a whole lot you can do.
I've seen him in other stuff at this point, and he's a good actor.
Right. Well, look...
I really like what he did with the Ahsoka flashbacks. I think he did great with those.
We all know that Natalie Portman is a good actor.
Yeah.
We've known that since she first appeared on screen in The Professional way back in the day.
But when you've got a director that wrote the dialogue and it's like trying to put rhinestones on a polished turd.
Yeah, it just... Again, Liam Neeson is a good actor. Ewan McGregor is a good actor.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, and like they're all just like fumbling over this dialogue, and it's not their fault. It's because the dialogue's crap.
And you can see where they probably improv'd areas because there are little shining spots of where, that was pretty good. I enjoyed that section. But now we have this interaction between Anakin and Padme, and it's like 14-year-olds groping each other.
Yeah, I'm going to say it right now. I was going to wait till the end to say that I actually enjoyed these movies rewatching them. All three of them.
I enjoy watching them. It's just they're such compared to the original three.
Yeah, but that's the same. I mean, it's and in a lot of ways you are comparing apples to oranges when it comes to that stuff, because they're of two different eras and two completely different people wrote them. And I say that as in a young George Lucas wrote all of the original stuff. And then a middle-aged, wealthy George Lucas wrote the other ones.
I mean, the middle one, the love story between Anakin and Padme is stalled and halted and stumbling and bumbling and fumbling and...
It's what a nerd would write for love story.
You can tell that some dude that's been living in his basement going, "Oh, this is what it's."
I know. That ultimately is what it comes down to.
The fact that he goes into the desert and massacres an entire village,
and then comes back and
Padme's like, "Oh well, you were angry." It's like giant, huge red flag. This guy has all kinds of anger issues.
All right. Let's There's a lot of analysis to do on these movies, okay?
And that's not even getting into the heavy-handed politics side of it.
Hold off on that, okay? Because we're going to get into it. Saw the Phantom Menace, was like, it's the first. It was a good start. We'll see where it goes, okay? Of course, the backlash started almost immediately.
Yeah.
It was really kind of the first internet fans really getting on something.
Yeah.
And they stayed on it for 3 years. When Attack of the Clones was released in 2002.
Yeah.
This is a weird one. Okay, so I wound up going to a matinee showing. In May.
Because you weren't going to make that mistake again.
Well, yeah, and it was like I got up and went, and I came back, and one of my roommates was just getting home from work when I came back. I was like, dude, I just went and saw it. And I really enjoyed it the first time, like watching. I really enjoyed it quite a bit. And I was like, man, I really, and it was one of those things that it was Toad was living with me at the time. And he's like, yeah, I've got tickets to go see it tomorrow night. And he's like, I really kind of go to see it. I was like, well, I think there's a showing. It starts in like half an hour. So we jumped in his car and went back up to the theater. So I watched it twice, literally
back to back.
And enjoyed it the second time as well. I was like, I really enjoyed this movie. Now, in subsequent years, again, I have not seen it since then. I saw it twice on the same day and have not seen it until last night.
Yeah.
And again, it was one of those, I walked away really liking it for about a week. And then I got to thinking about it. I was like, wait a second. Hold on. And it was, and again, it was, and these are in the days before I was really on the internet a whole lot. So there wasn't a lot of that. Some of it was, I'll admit, there was some coloring of talking to other people that I knew that were fans. They're like saying, well, yeah, I really liked it, but. Yeah. And that was usually what it was with that one. I really liked it, but. Yeah. And it was, whatever. By the time.
the action stuff was good.
Yeah, the
as long as they could keep the action going, we were okay. But the second everybody started talking, it was like, why? Did we
probably more than the other two movies? That the Attack of the Clones is the one that I sat back this time watching and realized what was kind of the most off-putting part of the movie for me, even seeing it 20 plus years ago. was there's quite a bit of, why was that in there?
Mm-hmm.
This isn't going anywhere. Like, it's just there.
Yep.
For no reason. And it really shone through last night quite a bit of like, why is this the way that it is? This doesn't make any sense.
Yep.
Like, none whatsoever. Biggest one being the battle in the arena when everyone's captured.
Yeah.
And they're like, you know, you can join our side. I went, no, we're not. Okay, we're going to kill you. And rather than just killing them, they bring out beasts and it's like, this is Bond level buffoonery.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's the whole Scott Evil thing. No, seriously, I'll just get my gun. We'll put a cap in his head right now and just go on. No, we must. No, seriously, we can just do it right now. It'll all be over. We don't have to worry about it any longer. You know, just
Yeah.
it's that type of stuff. Like, why did you do that? And why was it a it was a must that Natalie Portman's midriff had to get ripped off, or we could actually see her midriff, whereas that she was in one full bodysuit, and then all of a sudden, like, her entire midsection showing for no reason whatsoever.
Because there's no bras in space.
Yeah, but it was just like, why?
Yeah.
So then you get to 2005, and it's kind of one of those things for me anyway. It was like, okay, I didn't really like the first one. The second one I'm okay with.
So
hopefully the third.
I was okay with the first one. I could not stand the second.
Yeah. We had the opposite on this one. And then you get to Revenge of the Sith. And this is, of course, going into it, they had said this is going to be a much darker movie than the rest of them.
This is the one I enjoyed the most out of the three.
Yes. I had always maintained, when I was, well before we had anything beyond these 6 movies.
Right.
I had Revenge of the Sith above Return of the Jedi. In my list of, literally it was...
I hate putting those 3 together.
I know, but it was like, for me, I was like putting all the 6 movies that we had and a holiday special. I had Star Wars, Empire, Revenge of the Sith, Return of the Jedi, Attack of the Clones, and then I had the holiday special, and then Attack of the Clones, and then the Phantom Menace.
You know what my order on that would be.
I know, but that was my whole. But I had it above. I had it in like the 3rd spot. Okay. Again, this is a very limited for what we had for the longest time. Yes. Okay, that's all it was. And it's funny because by 2005, when that movie was released, social media, MySpace had really taken off.
Yes.
So there was a lot of making those lists and putting them up there on your social media of, oh, this is the way that I feel about this, or blah, 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 or I saw this today, here's my review, and that kind of stuff. It was one of those things that it was starting to come into fashion, And I really hesitate to talk about these movies individually because I watched them all at one time last night, so they all kind of run together.
I'll do my best to keep
to
keep you clear, so go ahead.
Here is my analysis as a whole, okay?
All right.
I will go back and rewatch these movies again before I go back and rewatch any of the Disney stuff whatsoever. Any of it. And that's not to say that there isn't parts of it that I liked, okay? I enjoyed Rogue One for the most part.
I really enjoy Rogue One. I think it's a good movie.
My biggest problem with Rogue One is the ending.
I'll give you that.
I hate that movie ends right where Star Wars picks up.
I agree.
There should have been a buffer in there of like, we've got to go.
Yeah.
And then also that hackneyed last line of the movie.
Yeah.
Of that whole A New Hope bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay. No. That was.
Well, that was Disney and Lucas.
I know, but I'm just saying.
Sure to put a nail. I know. Hammer the nail in of no, it's called A New Hope.
And again.
No, it's not.
I like enough of Solo to where I would probably go. I might go back and rewatch.
Oh no, I'll totally go back and watch Solo. I like Solo. I think it's a good movie.
I will never go back and watch The Mandalorian out of general principle because of what happened to Gina Carano.
Okay, if you leave the politics out of it.
That has nothing to do with politics. That has to do with just you don't treat people that way. Okay.
No, I agree.
Okay.
I agree. But if I didn't listen to the music made by scumbags, I wouldn't have
I know, and
anything to listen
I'm the
to.
same way on that. But also the fact that
I like The Mandalorian.
I liked the first season.
Yeah.
I liked most of the second season, and I have not bothered with it since then. I started watching the first episode of the third season, and I was like, no, I'm done with this. Star Wars Rebels is a great kids cartoon.
I love Rebels, and I love Clone
could not get into Clone Wars. So that's the whole thing. I know Clone Wars started with Lucasfilm. Like that started everything.
That's all Dave Filoni stuff.
I know.
I love the Dave
And
Filoni stuff.
it just because
I love the Bad Batch.
Okay,
You
that's fine. Look,
you didn't
again,
really watch, I love.
I didn't.
Clone Wars, Rebels, Bad Batch.
Okay,
absolutely worth watching.
I watched. I've seen all of Rebels. I've seen some of the Clone Wars from back in the day, and I even tried to watch some of it after Disney Plus first came around, and I just could not get into it. It just did not.
It took me a couple times to get into it. But once I got into it, I was like, yeah.
It just did not appeal to me. So I'm like, okay, whatever. But again, I watched Rebels. I won't go back and rewatch it because there wasn't enough there for me to go back and rewatch.
Okay.
I don't care at all about Ahsoka
I
don't care anything about Andor. I don't care any. And let me look.
Hold on.
What they did to Boba Fett.
Hold on. Let's start with Ahsoka.
Okay.
Hold on.
Before you say before you say anything, this goes back to what we said towards the end of last episode. Not everything has to be for me.
No,
okay,
I agree.
I don't have to like everything, and
agree.
you don't have to like everything that I like. I'm just going and telling you right now, as far as anything that Disney is doing that has Star Wars attached to it, it does not exist for me.
Okay, that's fine. But you're running through all this stuff, and you're not letting me counter with what I liked Ahsoka.
Okay,
I think it's a good show. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed pretty much all of it. I would like to see more of Ahsoka. I enjoyed the Obi-Wan series. I think it was a good series. It was a little slow in places. I enjoyed it. I would like to see more of that. Boba Fett, I'm not happy with what they did with Boba Fett. I think they could have done a lot better with it. I think they did Boba Fett a complete disservice.
I agree. They also made the Tusken Raiders way too
personable.
Not just personal. They made them too. They tried to make them sympathetic.
Yeah.
And we have never been given anything about Tusken Raiders that they should be sympathetic.
No.
Even to the point where you go like I'd forgotten about the part during the pod race.
Yeah, where they're just sitting up on the ridge,
being jerks, just shooting at people.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah. And what did they do?
Yeah.
They slaughtered a bunch of people and kidnapped.
Yeah.
Anakin's mom and held her as a slave, and she wound up dying because of it.
Yeah.
And so he slaughtered all of them, and I was behind Anakin on that one. Okay, that's
Acolyte, absolute pure trash. What a piece of garbage.
Didn't even try. I didn't have to.
I got through the first 3 episodes, and I looked at Miss Nay. I said, you can watch the rest of that by yourself. I have no interest in it whatsoever. I'm okay with the stuff that Filoni and Favreau touch with the Disney Star Wars stuff. Because the Favreau and Filoni stuff that they've done is actually pretty good, with the exception of Boba Fett, which I'm not sure they had a whole lot of hand in. Now, J.J. Abrams should have stuck to Star Trek, and he should have stayed in his lane, because those last 3 trilogy movies are absolute garbage.
I initially liked The Force Awakens.
Nope.
I said initially.
I almost got up and walked out of the theater in the middle of the movie.
Again, we have not had new Star Wars in years, in over a decade at that point.
And JJ was supposed to be the one to come in and do a new trilogy and make it good. And we'd seen what all he's done.
To be fair, I know why you're really salty about that movie.
I'd make no bones about it. I have never hidden it. I have never, if anybody asks, I will tell them.
Yeah.
But that's the exact moment that I almost got up and walked out of the movie theater. And screw Harrison Ford. If I see him out in public, I will kick him in the nuts.
Yes. And then when they released, what was the second one? The Last Jedi? Is that what it was called? Yeah, it was The Last Jedi. I didn't hate it initially.
All I hear when you say the second movie is a toilet flushing.
Yeah. I didn't hate it initially. There were aspects of it I really didn't like, but I didn't hate it overall.
Speaking of people that should be kicked into the nuts, Ryan Johnson is one of them.
And then again, it was kind of one of those. I'm kind of pot committed, even though I'm usually not when we play poker. But I was kind of pot committed to like, okay, let's see how they land this thing. And I just sat there and hate watched The Rise of Skywalker through the entire thing of like, this is bullshit. This is terrible. 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 And
well, people hated me because from the first time I saw Rey pick up a lightsaber and start fighting with it with no training, you can tell from the get-go that she was meant to be a Palpatine. Well, her fighting style is 100% Palpatine fighting style. And I called it from the first movie, and everybody was like, you're full of crap. I go, she's going to end up being a Palpatine.
Yeah. Those movies aside, because that's not what we're here to talk about.
You riled me up. You're the one who started going through all the other Disney stuff and bad.
I'm just saying, and I know. And the thing is that screw all of it. That for me is
it's piecemeal.
If
for me it's piecemeal because
I'll tell you why.
There's some okay and there's some really terrible.
I don't care if there's some okay. Okay, Star Wars is not good enough. Okay, and if Kathleen Kennedy is involved, it's definitely not going to be good enough. Okay,
it may as well 2.5 weeks ago, right?
But it just may as well be fanfic, all of it, and bad fanfic on top of it all. So
what makes me angry about the entire Disney Star Wars universe is they had a wonderful
the EU. They could have pulled from the EU and all kinds of stuff to pull from. I know,
from the Timothy Zahn library to pull from. They had a wonderful canon in the Dark Horse comic series. They had all kinds of backstory and wonderful storylines that were already written for them and ready to be made for film.
And you know why they didn't do it?
Because they're greedy and wanted to destroy the franchise.
The big reason that Disney did not go and do any of that stuff is because they did not want to pay the creators who created all that.
Well, they should
That's
have.
ultimately what it came down to.
Because it's all better writing.
I know that they did. They eventually did bring Thrawn into.
I can't tell you how angry Miss Nay is about never getting Mara Jade.
I know.
Mara Jade is her favorite Star Wars character ever.
And that has been a lot of people like, why don't you just use this character that people already love, who is a strong, capable woman and a Jedi on top of it all.
And a former assassin.
Exactly.
She was the Emperor's hand.
I know. And
a pirate.
But ultimately what it came down...
And a redhead.
Ultimately what... I think that has less to do with anything.
Especially a redhead.
I know you got your little fetish here. But it is a... Because Disney did not want to pay royalties on stuff. That's the reason why they completely scrapped everything that wasn't those 6 movies.
For our younger listeners who have no idea.
I'm sure there are none of them, but
go
and read the Timothy Zahn trilogy
and pick up the Timothy Zahn books.
Yep. Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising.
Oh, it's more than
and
that.
The Last Command.
No,
I'm talking those three. But those three,
yeah.
Okay.
But all of the Timothy Zahn stuff is amazing, and you should read all of it. Yes, children, pick up a book and read a book.
All right, let's get back to the prequels here. Okay, I know. Like I said, this is the last time we're going to talk about any of this stuff. So it's
my blood pressure's up right now.
Rewatching the prequels last night. I really was kind of dreading it. I honestly was. And I wound up liking all 3 of the movies. I didn't say I loved them. I said I liked them. Okay? I wound up liking all of them. Revenge of the Sith, I liked it as much as I remember liking it.
Yes.
And the other 2, I wound up liking more than I remembered liking them.
Attack of the Clones was as bad as I exactly remember.
That's fine. For me, it wound up being just the opposite. The biggest issue I found with all of it, 2 biggest issues, and they go hand in hand. The first one being that it all felt like it was on a green screen which it all was. I mean, it just
Every bit of it.
yeah. I mean, and it's like, I understand that you're also looking at effects from 20 years ago. They're not as good, but it just there were a lot of moments where it's like that doesn't even feel like that's the whole like if you go back and watch because they go to Tatooine, all three of the movies actually. You go back and watch Star Wars or Return of the Jedi where they're on Tatooine. Those are all sets that they're on. They're in Tunisia.
Yeah.
Okay. That they're filming that. They're at sets. There are people there. They're walking around. They're all that kind of stuff. This never feels like you're actually someplace.
No.
It feels like you're watching a motion capture video game is what it does. It really does. And that was one of the things that I said about the Phantom Menace. That the battle at the end, like the big one between the Gungans and the the battle droid the army, is that it felt like a video, and it felt like not just a video game at the time. It felt like a PS1 video game at the time, and it felt like that even this time as well, where it's like, oh yeah, this just really looks like a badly rendered video game.
Looking around for my controller.
Yeah, I know. And so that coupled with the fact that because none of this felt like it was an actual real place, it didn't feel like a lived-in world. And Star Wars had always felt like a lived-in world. Like this had been around for a long time. And, it's like, especially once you get into Coruscant.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, none of that feels like it's real whatsoever. And that's been one of the great things about sci-fi in general is they've been pretty good about building, whether it's Star Wars or it was Star Trek or it was, as much as I don't like the movie, Blade Runner, the world felt like it was lived in, and you can go through a whole bunch of other
felt
ones
old,
as well. Yeah,
dirty.
Exactly.
You felt like you had dust on your hands after you got through watching it.
And yeah, that's the whole thing. You're in a world that's basically a large desert.
Yeah.
And none of it feels like there's sand anywhere. It does not. Like, it just never feels like it's dirty whatsoever. And you live in a world like that, there is going to be sand everywhere.
Yeah.
And it really didn't. So those were kind of my biggest complaints with the movies more than anything else is and of course again we're talking about 25 years ago or between 25 and 20 and 25 years ago. A lot of times, like especially in the Phantom Menace, Jar Jar Binks is taller than everybody else. So eyeline, like when they're looking at him, it doesn't look like they're actually looking at somebody. It looks like they're looking behind where it is or in front of, or, it's like all that stuff is just like.
Well, they didn't have somebody there with like the head at the proper.
Well, I'm sure they had a pole with a tennis ball on it or something, but it was still one of those things where it's like, it still feels like this is all superimposed upon each other.
I cannot emphasize enough how much I hate Jar Jar Binks.
Okay. Well, you know what?
And he's either
barely get him in either of the subsequent movies.
Well, he's either complete village idiot and is brain damaged and walking around just being a nuisance to everybody, or he is Darth Jar Jar and he's a Sith drunken master.
Well,
because the stuff he does immediately is he's the one who brings down the Republic,
and he's manipulated is the whole thing. That is because when let me tell you this.
I'm going with, I may have to go with
No, I don't.
Darth Jar Jar, the drunken master.
I don't. It is complete buffoonery is what it is. It's someone who is not very smart being manipulated.
Well, that sounds familiar.
And the whole thing with that is, again, the writing is so bad that you have to like infer that for yourself because it's not really drawn out. Because it's after Padme takes off because there's been an attempt on her life, they're going to put her in hiding.
Who puts Jar Jar in charge?
And she did that as her emissary to the Senate. And then they're having that meeting right where he's there, and Palpatine makes that, if only Padme was here, then she would bring this before the Senate to blah blah blah. And then you get that quick look at Jar Jar where he's supposed to have like this contemplative look on his face, but it looks terrible, and it's like, oh,
looks like he's about to
I know.
his pants.
And so it's one of those things, again, bad writing, bad special effects, all that kind of stuff. And so, and the thing is like, yeah, he is literally in that movie for what, 3 scenes, and that's it. And thankfully so.
Well, and what's bad is I really feel bad for the actor.
Yeah,
that
I know, and he got a lot of crap that he
took
didn't
a lot of
deserve.
crap that he didn't deserve because you can only do so much with a garbage script. If these are the lines they're handing him, what are you going to do? I
know.
I'm in Star Wars and I'm getting paid.
Right.
Now,
Well,
now luckily he does get some redemption as a Jedi. I forget what the end of the movie was, where he rescues some Padawans and escapes with them. He gets to be an actual like real, and he's awesome in the scenes that he's in. I mean, it's like, yeah, all right, redemption finally. But good for you, dude.
You talk about the heavy-handed politics in these movies. Okay.
Especially the second one.
Well, the third one. I don't know what you're talking
Well,
about.
the third one, yeah.
These movies, all right, so The Phantom Menace went into production in, 97, something like that?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the old clip of, and again, this is early internet days, like when stuff's starting to, okay?
Yeah.
And they were doing this on, I think it was on StarWars.com, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe it was LucasFilms.com or something. They had like these little videos you could go and watch, in this little postage size, whatever, of behind the scenes of Lucas talking about, meeting with people and, and all that kind of stuff. And there is a video that you can find on YouTube of George Lucas, because I think MTV was following him around or something. They're kind of doing this whole, Star Wars is going to be huge and it's going to, everything. And it shows him going into his office, and he's kind of explaining. He's like, "Yeah, here we are in my office, and I've got a whole pack of pens, and I have these legal pads to start writing the new Star Wars. Now I just need something to write." And it's one of those things where at the time that was kind of like, ha, 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 whatever. And as time went on, it's like, oh, he was being serious. Like, he had no clue what he was doing when he sat down there that day. It was just kind of like, let's pour it all out on the paper and see what happens.
That bank account's looking a little thin. Maybe we ought to do the original 3.
So
Howard the Duck did not make me any money.
No. So, but what was funny about it, though, is that, again, it goes into production in the late 90s when we were at a time of relative peace in the world. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot going on. So it was one of those like, okay, it all has to do with separatist and trade organization. Or actually, it's trade organization.
Trade organization.
It's just trade organization. Okay. I don't know when they went into production on Attack of the Clones. It was released in 2002.
Yeah.
But I imagine 9/11 had at least a little bit to do with that movie. By the time you get to 2005, in 2005 for Revenge of the Sith, it's not only post 9/11 since this has been worked on, but also we were in war in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yep.
And it's all there. Like, it's all there. And it's all through the lens of an old hippie who, it's all about democracy, this, blah, blah, blah. And it was so funny watching that movie last night.
Yeah.
All the times that they talk about democracy, or, whenever Padme has that line, when Palpatine's given the speech at the Senate, he says, I've been scarred because of the attack on me, but I'm here and I'm more resolved than ever, blah, blah, blah. And everybody yells, and she says, so that's how liberty dies, is with thunderous applause or something like that. It's like, it's so prescient watching that last night and looking around and like, it's funny how a movie from 20 years ago is still like, and not in the way that George Lucas thought that it was going to.
Oh boy. That's not exactly what I meant, but I can see how you can get there.
Yeah, and it's just really, it's hilarious. It was hilarious watching that, but it was also, when you think back to movies that came out post 9/11, especially in those first 5 or 6 years afterwards, so, or at least went into production during that time. it's funny to look back at like Revenge of the Sith, or probably one of the better ones is The Dark Knight, and see how the politics of what was going on in the world are very much there. Even The Dark Knight Rises has some of the 1%, the people taking over. There's a very Occupy Wall Street thing going on there, with with Bane and all that, and it's funny to go back and watch that stuff. It's like, oh yeah, that's what was going on in the world at the time, wasn't it? Especially the whole surveillance state thing after the Patriot Act and all that kind of crap.
Oh yeah,
and but yeah, it's and don't get me wrong. The original trilogy was all based on literally, the Empire is based on Nazis. I mean, it's the imagery's there. I mean, hell, they even that final the ceremony at the end of Star Wars is taken straight from a Nazi propaganda film. I mean, it's like shot for shot. I mean, it's just like, whoa, it's like obviously someone who grew up in the shadow of all that stuff.
Yeah.
What do you got there?
Well, I went and looked for a list of films that were released after 9/11 or was infected by 9/11. 2002 Spider-Man, where you have the web between the two Twin Towers.
Well, that scene was that scene was cut out of the movie. Actually, the Twin Towers were cut out completely from that movie.
Same with Zoolander.
Right.
Don't Say a Word. Men in Black 2 had a World Trade Center scene cut out of it. Mr. Deeds.
Really? I know it's set in New York.
It's set in New York, yep. Changes related to the...
But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of...
E.T., the 2002 release.
They took the guns out.
A piece of dialogue. You're not going as a terrorist.
That's right. Yeah,
Let's replace terrorist with you're not going as a hippie.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're not going as a terrorist.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah. Because we talked about that when we covered E.T. a couple of years ago.
Lilo and Stitch.
Really?
The film originally showed Stitch, Jumba, Peakley, and Nanny hijacking a Boeing 747 to chase down Captain Gantu.
Can't do that anymore.
Can't do that anymore.
There you go. So,
Bourne Identity.
Yeah, I've never seen any of those movies. So.
The Bourne movies aren't. The books are so much better. They really are. X-Files.
X-Files had,
They shelved some stuff.
Well, famously with the X-Files was the spinoff of The Lone Gunman.
Yeah.
That one of the plot points that came out in like February of 2001 was that there was a terrorist that was going to fly a plane into a building. And it was like...
a Jackie Chan film was completely canceled called Nosebleed, about a window washer on the World Trade Center who foils a terrorist attack. James Cameron was planning to make a sequel to True Lies, but canceled the project.
Yep, afterwards. I knew that because of all of it.
There were also plans to have a sequel for Forrest Gump, and they said nope, no point in it.
But there's a second Forrest Gump book. It's called Gump and Company.
Yeah, but they were planning on making a sequel.
I know they were going to make a sequel to it because it made crap ton of money. It is what it is. I mean, and that was, I remember at the time when Revenge of the Sith was released.
Yeah.
That there is a shot where Padme is looking across Coruscant at the Jedi Temple and it's on fire.
Yeah.
I remember people then saying it's very striking imagery of what we saw with 9/11.
Yeah.
And I guess you could see, I mean, it was very much in the public consciousness at the time, so you were looking for stuff like that. Rewatching it again, of course, that popped into my head. That I remember hearing people say that, and then I was like, all these years later, it doesn't really remind me of 9/11 so much, But it just.
Well, you're talking about the Nazi thing.
Yeah.
When you get
the Empire or not, they're space Nazis. There's no ifs, ands, buts about that. Okay.
Yeah. And they leaned into that hard.
I know.
With the first movie of the last trilogy. With the First Order.
Right.
I mean, they look like they pulled those uniforms directly out of an old World War II movie.
It's almost like they had some kind of final solution or something.
Not to mention the fact that it's basically a rehash.
I know, yeah, I know. But
oh, look, they built another Death Star.
Yeah, I know.
Like it worked the first 2 times.
So
let's build one out of a planet.
That at the end of Revenge of the Sith, where they're building
the
original Death Star.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to say this about Revenge of the Sith. That movie is 2 hours and 22 minutes long. It could have been less than 2 hours, easily.
About an hour 45.
They could have probably pushed it to 2 and it wouldn't have been that bad, but it's almost like the end of Return of the King, where there's like 4 endings to it. It just keeps going and going and going and going and going, and it's just like, oh my god.
Well, at that point, they're setting up the additional storylines for the movies that have already been made.
I know, and they didn't need to because we already know them. Yeah. That's those movies already exist. You don't have to set up anything, okay? We know what happens between this and, was it 18 to 19 years later or whatever it is, that between the two. 20 years, I think, actually. Isn't it 20 years between the end of Revenge of the Sith and Star Wars?
Probably. That's about how old both Luke and Leia were.
I think
because
that's
Obi-Wan
right.
was 10 years later.
Right. And I really, rewatching these prequels, I started finding a lot of the contradictions of what was in the originals that... Hey, wait a second. Midichlorians aside, okay, that was just dumb to begin with. I also love the fact how you really don't hear that mentioned again after the first movie. It's mentioned one other time.
Yeah.
But then it's just gone. It's just like, yeah, we're not going to talk about that anymore. It just and
it went from being space magic,
right,
to no, we've done some science and it's actually chemistry.
Yeah, whatever. It's chemistry through space magic. Just I know. And like I said, I was really surprised with how much I kind of enjoyed those movies last night. I was really surprised. I think I would have enjoyed them more if I hadn't sat down for 7 hours and watched them back to back to back. Because I think it was just a little too much. And also the fact it was really late whenever I finally got into bed. And I was just like, oh man, how much longer? I kept every once in a while would stop the movie, all 3 of them. And we're like, how much time's left? Just like looking at the thing, like how much time's left? Oh God. I mean, just like I remember during, and of the 3, the one that felt like the slog was Attack of the Clones. Like that one really felt like, and it's
that
not,
one took me the longest to watch because I kept falling asleep.
It's the shortest movie
and having to go back and rewatch.
It's the shortest of the 3. That's the crazy thing of it.
I ended up taking
by just a few minutes, but still,
I ended up taking a half an hour nap in the middle of it and had to go back and rewatch.
I know,
like,
why? But I want to say this also. I said it at the time. I have maintained it over the last 25 years, and last night reinforced it. That pod racing scene is spectacular.
Oh yeah,
and what it really like made me nostalgic for, and I'm going to have to go see if I think it's available now on the Switch. Is you remember the pod racing video game?
No.
Oh, dude, that was the best thing that came out of the Phantom Menace. Was the pod racing game, because that's all it is just pod racing.
Oh, so they had
just a racing game.
They had the pod racing scene so they could sell video games?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. That game was, I think it was only on the N64, if I'm not mistaken. It started off on the N64.
That's why I don't remember.
And then it was ported to the other ones, if I'm not mistaken. But that was because I remember Media Play had it set up like where you could play it in they had it set up store, and I would stand there and play and just play and play and play, and somebody, hey, can I play? Sure, go and grab in, and just kind of one of those things, and you have a bunch of people standing around while you're playing, oh yeah, come on over here, your turn, whatever. And then I had somebody I knew had it also, and I remember like that was the game that I played, was that Star Wars pod racer, and that was just, it was great, and so yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken that they ported that in the last couple of years, like it's only available on download or something I think it's on the Switch. Mm-hmm. It may be on other ones as well. I don't know, because I think it was a Nintendo exclusive to begin with.
I
then
don't
eventually
have a
ported.
current gaming
Yeah,
system.
I know. We already gone over that. But yeah, it just I don't know. Like I said, I stand by what I said earlier. If I'm going to go back and watch something that's not the original trilogy, it'll be these movies.
Yeah.
And that probably has a lot to do with the fact that George Lucas actually did these. Even if they're not that good, they're still Lucas. They're not an outside force, no pun intended, trying to put their stamp on it. And I'm fine with that. Now, am I going to go out? I'll go ahead and tell you right now, I didn't buy them. I had to sail the high seas to get these movies to watch because I wasn't going to go buy them. I may actually go out and buy them now, just to add them to the collection.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's and not that I have not been compelled to do that ever. I don't think I've ever owned a copy of the prequels, and I may have to go do that now. But I'll be honest, I don't know what version of them I saw because Lucas couldn't stop messing with them.
No.
So the versions that we saw in the theaters are probably not the versions we watched. So it's
no, you're not wrong.
And
he
again,
never knows when to leave
I know,
anything
I
alone.
know, and that's
dang it.
So what are you looking for?
Arkansas has like 47 seconds left. They're losing to Oklahoma State.
Oh goodness, that's typical Arkansas.
They threw away the lead.
That's typical Arkansas. So anyway, yes, college football has started up, and we're all in on it. So it's
Texas spanked Michigan.
Did they? Good.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Okay, so
all right. So some good came out of today. Huh?
Yeah. I don't much like Texas being in the SEC.
Yeah,
but we can't have them losing to
Now I know. Now that
after they've joined the SEC.
Now that they're a part of our conference, then they need to step up. Is what it comes down to. Yeah. So it's them and Oklahoma both. Hey, got to step up. This is Missouri and Texas A&M have both done fairly decent jobs since they've come in. So it's all right.
I'll say that kind of about A&M.
Yeah.
I will not say that about Missouri.
Salty about Missouri.
I don't like Missouri.
No, fair enough. Fair enough.
They came in and immediately decided that they were going to be rivals with Kentucky. And, okay, you want to pick a fight? We will let you pick a fight, and I will punch you in the mouth every chance I get.
There you go. So, you're really salty today, aren't you? About everything. So anyway, let's try.
Bacon is fat and salty, and so am I.
Winding this down.
But we're both full of flavor.
Yeah, there you go. What was it I saw? I saw a reel the other day. There was this woman just said,
"Squirrel.
How are women like bacon?"
Oh no!
Said,
don't. Just don't.
We said we smell good. What was it? It said we smell good, we taste good, and we kill you slowly.
It's such a delicious death.
So anyway, I really enjoyed watching these movies again. A whole lot more than I thought I was going to. Oh, let me tell you the thing that I meant to say this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me ask you this question.
Are you sure you want to?
Yes, in Star Wars, in the original Star Wars, what happened at the end of the lightsaber battle with Obi-Wan and Darth Vader?
Obi-Wan looked at Luke, turned his lightsaber off, and Darth Vader
He didn't turn it off. He held it upright.
Okay, he held it upright.
He stopped fighting.
He stopped fighting,
and then Vader did what?
He slashed through the middle of him,
and
the robes fell to the floor with the lightsaber
killed Obi-Wan.
on top. Yeah,
killed Obi-Wan. Okay.
Yeah.
What happened at the end of the Phantom Menace when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and Darth Maul were all fighting with their lightsabers?
Well, Qui-Gon gets run through and dies,
Mm-hmm.
and Darth Maul gets cut in half and falls to the bottom of the shaft, and we later discover that he grows a spider bottom half and
something like that. Yeah, but
he lives
somehow. That was retroactively put in later.
Yeah,
okay, but tentatively he died. Okay. What happened to all the younglings at the end of Revenge of the Sith?
They died.
How?
Well, Anakin killed them all
with
a lightsaber.
Mm-hmm. What happened to Count Dooku when Palpatine got a hold of him?
It wasn't Palpatine. Anakin cut his head off.
What was Anakin? Okay, cut his head off with
2 lightsabers.
Mm-hmm.
After he cut both his hands off.
Right, but lightsaber killed him. What happened
technically his head coming apart from his body killed him.
Okay. So what happened when what happened in Ahsoka when somebody got run through with a lightsaber?
See, I know where you're going with this. I know where you're
What happened in the Acolyte when somebody got run through with a lightsaber?
Yeah.
What happened? What outside of Han Solo getting run through the lightsaber? But I really don't think that killed him. I think it was the fall down the shaft that it ultimately got him.
Yeah.
But what happened? What happens? What has happened to everybody in a Disney property who has been run through with a lightsaber?
Well, I'll be honest. I know where you're going with this. I know what you're going to say. But I had a problem with Qui-Gon dying from getting run through with a lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if he'd been cut clean in half at chest level, I would have been okay with it. But if you look at a lightsaber and the way it works, technically, if you get run through, it cauterizes the hole as it comes back out.
Fair enough.
So
but if
you would not bleed to death.
No, but
and you could probably have that repaired.
Depending. Here's the thing: Qui-Gon he got run through in the abdomen. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. There are a lot of organs in there, and even if it's cauterized, organs stop working.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Okay. That's just okay. That is, again, rewatching the movies and like seeing all these lightsaber deaths. I'm like, this is back when lightsabers, getting run through the lightsaber actually meant something. And I mean, that has been one of my big gripes about all of the Disney Star Wars stuff. It's like, apparently there are no stakes whatsoever. I'll also say this one thing is a little side note, but it deals with lightsabers.
But
okay? Let's deal with lightsabers. Okay.
I've always argued that getting run through in certain parts of your body with a lightsaber should probably not be deadly because it does cauterize.
It's one thing like with Anakin getting his arm cut off, okay?
Right?
Or Luke his hand or whatever. It's like, okay, fine. It cauterizes. It doesn't. All right, fine.
Same with the legs.
Okay, I get that.
When he does the flip over Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan takes him off at the knees.
I get that. Okay, I don't have a problem. But okay, that was my other side thing here. Okay, how many limbs did we get taken off in these? Or hands, some kind of appendage that gets taken off.
It was Anakin's hand.
Mm-hmm. Or his arm.
It was
he
arm
lost it
at the elbow. It was both of Dooku's hands and his head.
And his head, right.
And then you saw Obi-Wan take off Anakin at the knees, literally.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 3, 4,
but
5,
there were
6,
others
6.
as well in the battles and stuff. We saw a lot of people lose arms or legs or heads or whatever.
Yeah.
The funny thing I was watching, because that's been a thing forever. Hey, lightsabers, you have to watch out for them. In the very beginning of the Phantom Menace, when the blast doors come down, the lightsaber is powerful enough to actually start melting the blast doors when it's put through there, okay? So it's one of those things we've established that these things are deadly, okay?
Yeah.
And very destructive. It was hilarious because the other thing, the big change between the original trilogy and these movies is that all of a sudden people are taking lightsabers and they're flipping them around and I mean there's a lot of taking it, like holding a lightsaber and like twirling it around and that kind of stuff. And what was hilarious is I was kind of watching some of that stuff, especially in beginning with Phantom Menace, whenever you would see Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon like next to each other and they're flipping stuff around. I'm like, okay, Somebody should have lost an appendage there somewhere, just like collateral damage of the way these things are coming around. And or someone lops off their own ear, putting the things up around and flipping and all this kind of stuff. And it was just like, wait a second.
Well, they're using the force.
Yeah, whatever. You can explain it away any way you want to. But I kept watching all of that stuff. And I'm like, no, seriously. The people who are around next, like when that big battle we were talking about it in Attack of the Clones, it's in the arena when all the Jedi show up.
Yeah.
And there's like 15 Jedi, and they're standing in a circle, and they're all like swirling their lightsabers. I was like, no, dude, there are heads and limbs flying off everywhere from just collateral damage here if we're doing this right. So. A lot of friendly fires.
Yeah.
Oh, don't forget that Mace Windu lost a hand also.
Oh, that's right.
And yeah,
Thanks to Anakin.
there's yeah, again, that was a whole. It's like, I am going to make this point of we had decades of you get run through by a lightsaber, you die. And then Disney came along like, do you really die? I mean, maybe you just like, you fall down like you're dead and then you wake up in a hospital later and everything's okay. So it's
well, I knew where you were going with it.
Uh-huh.
I could. I've already.
The point was there.
I've already seen the
point
argument.
was there.
The point was there. But in all fairness, I actually had a problem with Qui-Gon dying from getting run through, because I was like, you should be able to get a medical droid or take him to a medical center and hopefully mitigate the damage, if not replace the organs with synthetics, because you basically replaced all of Anakin with a suit. The only thing that was left there was
he had a torso and a head and an arm.
And
no, actually, he lost both arms.
No.
Yeah, he did.
No, he did not.
Did he have one arm still?
He had one arm still.
Okay.
But his lungs were completely damaged,
right,
which is why he had to be in the self-contained suit. Most of his organs had been damaged. Mm-hmm. I mean, he had been cooked. He was a human fritter.
Absolutely, yeah.
They were
molten lava got him. I mean, that was just like burned him to a crisp. So.
Yeah, but they were able to do enough Sith organs and mechanicals to let him become the worst villain in the universe.
Mm-hmm. And he got his Frankenstein moment. So
yeah,
like literally. And the thing is though, with Qui-Gon, dying the way he did, it was still a better death than Luke Skywalker just dying because he was tired.
Yeah,
it was.
Yeah. Oh, and that's a comment I made to Renee in the middle of Attack of the Clones. Mm-hmm. It was like, oh, well, we see where Luke gets his whininess from.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we see where C-3PO gets his whininess from.
Yeah, dude, okay. Let's talk. I know I said we were going to get out of here, but the more we talk, the more I'm like, oh, yeah, I had a point about this. R2 had a really good introduction. Mm-hmm. C-3PO had a pretty good introduction. Okay, we find out Anakin built C-3PO, okay? Yeah. Then we don't see C-3PO again until the next movie.
Right.
And, of course, by this point, R2 is pretty ingrained in the Republic, and, he's a companion to all of our characters and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Then when they go back to Tatooine, C-3PO has got an outer cover. It's not the gold yet.
No.
But at least all of his parts are covered, unlike the last time we saw him. We never get an explanation of that, but okay. Then there is that blasphemy that happens in the droid factory of
his head being taken off and put on
a battle droid and vice versa.
Yeah.
But even worse is, wait a second, you mean R2-D2 can fly?
Yep.
Why didn't he do that before in stuff that came out after this movie? That's supposed to have happened after this.
Well, I'm chalking that up to he's now part of the rebellion. Rebellion isn't going to have the best facilities and resupply lines,
but we never see him damage those.
But how old is he at this point? Stuff just wears out.
I know, but that kind of stuff.
He's an old as crap droid by the time we get around. But
also remember, at the end of Revenge of the Sith, Senator Organa says to wipe the protocol droid's memory.
Right.
Doesn't say that about R2.
No, R2 knows who everybody is.
Mm-hmm. Only 3PO is the one that
Which means R2's the only one you can trust because that man knows how to keep his mouth shut.
Yeah, pretty much. So, but yeah, there are all kinds of inconsistencies between the prequels and what came before, and it just But I just there was a little too much of. Yeah, and then the whole Chewbacca thing, the Wookiees, just...
Okay, I was okay with the Wookiee scene until we got the Tarzan holler.
Yes. I had forgotten that was in there, and we were watching. I was like, oh, that's so bad. Why did they do that? Why?
I was okay with everything that was going on Kashyyyk.
Right.
Until we get the two Wookiees swinging over to one of the battle droids going, oh!
I know.
It's like, you morons.
I know. And I picked it out in one of the movies, but I know that it's in all three of them. The what's it called? The Wilhelm Scream. I picked it out in one of them. I think it was in Attack of the Clones, but I didn't hear it in the other two, and I know that it's there because it's used in all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It's in all of those movies because Lucas loved that for some strange reason. So
no, it was his sound effects guy.
Whatever it was.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's in all of them. And
it's in all of those. It's in
it's in a ton of stuff.
It's in all of Spielberg's stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Because
and again,
they're big buddies.
They're I know.
Everybody in Hollywood uses it, but they use it because it was in Star Wars.
Right. And I think it's also it doesn't have any copyright on it or anything. It's not trademarked. So
no.
It's like, all right, we can use that. It's a
and
it's a callback. It's say, look how smart we are. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And a lot of times people mix it with like a cougar growl or something for an explosion.
Yeah. So, but all in all, I enjoyed them. I really did.
The first and third, yeah. The second one,
like I said, results may vary depending.
Yeah.
It's just the other, like the meme that's come out of that is the Anakin and Padme.
Yeah. In the field, in
the whole like, that sounds like or was it? That sounds like a dictatorship, but it works. You're joking, right? And the look, and that's been substituted out for a bunch of stuff. You know, so yes. Let's talk about Padme for a second.
Okay.
I remember watching The Phantom Menace in theaters in 1999 and being extremely confused of like, wait a second, I thought Natalie Portman was Padme Amidala or was Queen Amidala. Why is she standing next to? And of course they explain, it's a decoy, you know, and they finally get there. But like for a good chunk of that movie, being like, what's going on here? I thought she was Queen Amidala, you know, and then you come to find out all that stuff. You know, one of the. I think it's
Keira
I didn't look
Knightley.
at it. It's Keira Knightley.
Yeah.
She's the one that gets killed at the beginning of Attack of the Clones, right?
I don't know that for sure.
I think that's.
I know she was
one of them.
She was one of the queens
before anybody knew who she was. You know, but yeah, it's just there was quite. Oh, what was the guy's name? Terrence Stamp was in. Was it The Phantom Menace?
Who's Terrence Stamp?
Zod.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
He's only in one scene. Like lyrically, I was like looking, I was like, that's Terrence Stamp. That isn't that him? I was like, it's like, oh yeah, that is what is he play? He's like in a scene. I mean, he's like on screen.
Yeah.
You know, like whatever. I forget where it is exactly, but I was like, okay, cool. I was glad to see that happen, you know. But yeah, I just I may have been too harsh on these movies over the last 25 years.
Well,
and
the reason we were harsh on those movies,
we expected more.
It's because we expected more.
We did.
And we had yet to see what Disney was going to do with the final.
And that was going to be my point. Sometimes
it's like, hey, the first three were great. Why are these next three not so good?
And it made me...
Oh, these are even worse.
It made me think of Chuck. Okay, remember in the last season when Morgan he's losing his memory after he had the intersect?
Yeah.
And it's that whole thing where he can't remember watching Star Wars. And, you know, Chuck's like, oh, it's going to be so great for you to, you know, and then what's his name? Adam Baldwin's character. The military guy.
Yeah, I can't think of his name.
I know, but, you know, and he's like, he's mad at Morgan because of the way he treated his daughter. And so he's like, yeah, start with the first one. And there's that whole like, you know, type. And I was like, I think coming into like, if you've never seen any of these movies, like ever, I could see where you might actually like the prequels. Yeah, like if you just started with one and then went through, it's like, oh, okay. And that's a lot of when Ariel was sitting in here and we got to talking about that. Yeah. And of course she talks about Star Wars, and her Star Wars are the prequels because she was like 7 years old when that first movie came out. Yeah. And so those are the movies she grew up with as Star Wars. Now as she said, she likes the originals as well, but those three but you know, the prequels are the movies that she grew up on coming out in theaters.
That's such
just
a
saying.
shame.
But in a lot of ways she didn't know any better though. Yeah. You know, I mean, because that's just what it was. And
see, when Renee's cousins were coming up, we did not let them see the first three before they'd seen the originals.
Oh, yeah, no.
We would not let them do that.
Xander hasn't seen any of them that I know of. His mom might have sat him down. I know he knows enough about Star Wars because Star Wars has been around him since he was born.
Yes.
In some shape, way, or form, because his mom and I are both big fans, you know. But I don't think he's ever actually watched the movies. And I'm going to do the whole, no, you have to watch these movies. And then maybe we'll talk about the rest of them at another time. You know, so when you're older, maybe we'll talk about it. Yep. So, all right. So we really are going to get out of here. Yeah, I'm glad we did this. Again, as I stated earlier, this is going to be the last time that we do anything for an episode Star Wars related. I know we're going to go into tangents on Star Wars because it's what we do as Gen Xers. But I think this was a good way to close it out. Of hey, we have basically covered all of the Lucas stuff. We didn't go back and do individual episodes on Star Wars or Empire, and I don't really want to either. But this is we're closing out the Lucas stuff, and sometimes you just have to close chapters in your life. You know, and that's what we're doing here on this podcast. We're just closing this chapter of Star Wars, you know, and we're just going to go on and do other stuff. So, and speaking of closing chapters, next week's going to be a lot of fun. Our next episode's going to be a lot of fun. Not for Dave, but for me. And because there's a lot that's going to be going into this next one. I'm going to the only clue I'm going to give is that the next episode is going to be about a television series that was really popular and very divisive all at the same time.
You guys have fun with that.
I'm going to.
Because I won't be here.
I know. And and because I did not want to hear an hour of you snark about it is the reason why I brought in other people who love the show. So it's
now I might actually show up. I'll let you three gush over it, and then I'll just sit here with a bucket of water ready to put out that flame.
Whatever. So I am rewatching that television show. So
it seems like you could find something better to do with your time.
Actually, I'm enjoying it quite a bit. And the fun thing about it is that, well, it's like I told you, it's like, yeah, I'm rewatching all of this show, which is multiple seasons, and I had to sit down and rewatch these movies. And they're all overlapping.
You did it to yourself. And
I know. And it's one of those things that had I started earlier rewatching the show, it wouldn't have been so bad, but I got to, I want to get this in before we do Oktoberfest. Oh crap, I've only got a couple of weeks to do all of this. And so I have been binge watching like crazy.
I get a week off.
Oh, not really, because we got to start recording Oktoberfest episodes, and that's coming up. So, yeah. So the next time that you hear Dave's voice after this will be Oktoberfest, because we've got enough stuff to get to. With the next episode, we'll catch the end of September, and then we're going to Oktoberfest. So
I'm going to have you record me saying a certain phrase that you're going to need to play just randomly during the next episode.
Okay.
And it's basically me going, this show sucks.
Yeah, whatever.
And then you can just play it randomly every once in a while so it feels like I'm in the room.
Yeah. So
you should do that.
Now we want to enjoy this episode because it was spectacular.
Garbage. Garbage.
No, we're not talking about The Godfather. So it's... So guys, go and check out all of our social medias, Discord especially. Tell us what you think about the prequels. Tell us what you think about the Disney stuff. Tell us that you're sick of Star Wars, whatever it is. So that you're glad this is the last time we're going to talk about it. Yeah, we'll see you again for another big episode on a television show that's celebrating a milestone. So
I would put celebrating mildly.
So guys, for the Project Gen X podcast.
It's more like not letting you forget it exists.
Yeah. For the Project Gen X podcast, I am one of your hosts, Alan Smith, along with...
I'm the other guy, Big Dave.
We'll see you next time.
See you.